this lesson, we're going to be continuing with creating the floor. Start with where we left off in the last lesson, which was creating the hexagonal tiles. We split it into two, so we have the grouting separately, separate from the tiles. We're going to use this grout to help us build the wooden flooring using floor generator and some splines. So I'm going to select the grout and the splines that we created earlier and isolate them. Now what I need to do is, this is a bit of a long drawn out process really, and there's not really a quick way around it, I don't think. I can select this edge, loop it, and modify selection, select similar, and that should hopefully give me all the outside edges that I need around the edge of the grouting. And then I can create a shape from this selection, which will give me a spline. I'll keep it as linear to keep sharp edges. Okay. And then we can select that spline, and we'll select our, if you remember, we created a wooden floor spline as well. So we'll select both of these and we'll isolate them. And with this spline here, all we need are the outside edges from this corner and around here. So this is where it's the long process. If anybody else can tell me a quicker way of magically selecting splines that you want, do let me know. But until then, it's a case of doing it by hand. But I think it's worth it because this is, this is the effect that I want. So it's going back to basics really. So we'll just keep on selecting. In fact, we'll do it the other way. We'll just go straight through. If we select all of the outside ones, it's probably going to be easier to deselect the ones we don't want, then go through and try and select all of the ones that we do want. So if I just go through and quickly select all of the end ones. As you can see, it's really fun and it takes a little bit of time, but hopefully you'll believe me when I say it's worth it. So we'll select all of the end ones. Almost there. Up to that point. Control I, invert selection, and delete the ones that we don't want. And now we can just go through and select some of these random edges sticking out. Oh, looks like we've got one to fill in there, and that makes it a little bit easier to just delete stragglers, as they would say. Looks like we can delete most of these as well. So we've got a few pieces that we'll need to fill in, which is fine. We'll delete those. So this, while still being a bit long, seems to be a much quicker process than trying to select all of the ones we do want individually. Deleting things is always quicker than creating them. So it should be able to connect verts. So you can press connect and then just click and drag and fill in any missing splines. It looks like we've still got a few extra ones hanging around that we don't need. So we can go back into edge mode and delete those again. And that looks like it should be it. Right, so now we take the wood spline that we had, and we want to snap this bottom edge to this edge. We can delete that vert, we can delete that vert, and we want to snap this vertex to this edge. And these verts we can snap to the end, so it gives us the flat edge. And then we can find, when we unhide everything, so I'll select both of these and unisolate, and then when we find the wall, we'll see that we don't need these edges. This can snap to there. And then we'll snap the wood spline in the correct place, and we can delete this edge. Now our wood spline goes inside the walls, or outside the walls at the minute, which we don't want. We want it to go inside. There's no point in having geometry intersecting. Plus it'll give us a nice little shadow gap if it's set inside the walls. Oh, deleted a few too many vertex there. So we can set that in here. And the same goes for this edge. And we'll bring that inside the wall. And we can just snap to the correct height in the correct place there. So we can probably get rid of these for the moment, because we only want our spline for this area of the house at the minute. So we can drag that up there, and the same thing, connect, just drag and pull, and closes our spline off. Control all, right click corner like we did before to save any Beziers or Beziers, and then we need to attach it to this, and that should give us our wooden floor spline, which should butt up against our hexagonal tiles. So while, you know, you can consider that to be a long process, it wasn't too bad really. It's just a case of taking a little bit of extra time to do it, and now we have a spline that fits exactly where we want it to the edge of the grouting, not to the edge of the tiles. So our next port of call is floor generator, which we mentioned in the first introduction. It's a free script from CGSource to create floors, wooden planks, generally just long straight wooden planks, but you can give you can offset the scale, the rotation, the gap in between. Obviously you can specify the length and the width of the planks, so if you know what size your textures are going to fit, you can make your wooden floor specific to your texture you're going to use, or you can just go for a general size. I just went for an average size from looking at the CGSource texture sizes. Although we're not using CGSource textures, we're actually making the wooden planks ourselves. But this is just a size that I thought was quite good and fitted my room nicely. We've just done a row offset of 20%, and we've just picked an extrude height of 5. I'll put that up to 6 because that will now match the height of the hexagonal tiles. We've put a little bit of tilt in there, so it gives it a tilt of 3 degrees. We'll probably put that down to 2 because that could be a little bit too harsh, and we've put a gap of 0.2. Now, the handy thing about having my units set in millimeters and displayed in millimeters, as I mentioned a couple of lessons ago, is that now I can put in my dimensions in millimeters and it'll work correctly. Quite often, if you're in meters, you have to start putting in 0.1, 0.2 and stuff like that, whereas I know I want it to be 1860 long. I can just type in 1860 and it keeps it less confusing for me. The seed allows you to, seed in anything such as noise. It just creates random distribution, which is very helpful. So we select our spline, change the seed. We've put all of our settings in. We've got a maximum rotation of 3%. So each individual plank will have a maximum rotation of up to 3% deviation from the other planks. And we've put a little bevel on the edge, which is a little chamfer of 0.5 mil, and a very small gap in between, because I don't want them to be huge. I don't want you to fall down in between them, of 0.2. And we'll just press create. Obviously it's a big area, it can take a little bit of time, but generally it's pretty good. So we've just got to wait for it to update in the viewport, which it doesn't seem to be doing. It's strange. Try it again. Okay. Something hasn't worked there. Maybe I can just weld all of my vertexes and try that again. And there we go. Apologies, that was my fault. Where we joined two splines together, we had vertexes that weren't welded, so we just needed to select all the verts and then hit weld with just a small amount so it doesn't actually weld any of these verts that we don't need. We can make all these corners again. And now we have our floor. Now sometimes, depending on how close it is to an edge, stuff like that, you might get some geometry cutting through. You can easily turn this into an editable poly and adjust that as you need. You can connect, weld, get rid of cuts, or cut in geometry yourself, or add things in. For things such as this, just for ease, I would actually just copy and paste some tiles from this inside the model as different elements and fill it in. But now you can see that we have a wooden floor with planks. They all have a bit of an offset, as you can see. You can see the gaps and the difference in height and rotation and things like that. And yeah, it looks pretty good. I'm happy with that. And that's how to create a nice detailed floor in 3ds Max. Well, how to create the detailed floor that I want in 3ds Max. I hope that's helpful.